You and everybody around will follow my rules only.
I boarded that cruise expecting pure relaxation. You know, blue water stretching all the way to the horizon, sunshine warming the top deck, fruity drinks with those tiny umbrellas that make you feel like life isn't falling apart. The whole reason I booked the trip was to escape real-world nonsense. No work emails, no neighbor drama, absolutely zero HOA energy. Just peace, ocean breeze, and Wi-Fi that only works half the time. Perfection. The first morning was everything I hoped for. I grabbed breakfast, explored the ship, took one of those awkward welcome photos where they pose you next to a plastic dolphin, and then headed up to deck 11 with my sunscreen and a plan to melt into a pool chair for at least 5 hours straight. Vacation mode fully activated. Then at exactly 12:03 p.m. the peace was shattered. I should have known something was off by the sudden shift in energy, the way people on the deck slowly turned their heads like meerkats sensing danger. A couple near me stopped mid-conversation. A kid in the pool froze like someone had paused him. Even the seagulls got quiet. And then she appeared. Karen. Not just any Karen, but the most HOA-coded Karen I had ever seen in my life. She strutted onto the cruise deck wearing a full pink suit. A pink suit. On a cruise ship. At noon. The sun was blasting off that thing like she was a disco ball with an attitude problem. She had oversized sunglasses, a stiff posture, and in her hand, a laminated neighborhood compliance guide. Laminated. On a boat. I nearly choked on my strawberry smoothie. She marched right up to the center of the deck, planted herself like she owned international waters, raised her clipboard to the sky, and declared, loudly, proudly, and with the confidence of someone who has never once been told no in her life. These rules will apply to all passengers in my vicinity. Her vicinity? Girl, this is a 4,000-passenger ship, not your cul-de-sac. A wave of confusion rolled across the deck. People looked at each other like, is this a comedy show? Is she part of the entertainment? Is this a TikTok prank? One guy actually started clapping because he thought she was introducing a magic act. But nope. She was dead serious. Karen cleared her throat, smoothed down her pink lapel, and started handing out thick stacks of printouts, actual printed rule sheets, like she was passing out subpoenas. Make sure you familiarize yourselves, she told a confused elderly couple sunbathing peacefully. We will be enforcing these immediately. We? I thought. Who is we? Did she bring a board of directors in her luggage? Passengers hesitated to take the papers. A teenager reached for one, realized what it was, and instantly pulled his hand back like it was radioactive. Another guy accepted a paper out of polite reflex, stared at it for a second, then whispered, "Bro, what is this?" before handing it to his wife like it was cursed. I glanced at one of the sheets a guy dropped on the deck. It was worse than I imagined. Karen had created a full HOA-style rulebook for the cruise. A cruise book. Page titles included. Approved towel colors for deck seating. Quiet hours. All times that are inconvenient for me. Pool deck movement regulations. Footprint minimization policy. Buffet line conduct expectations. Footprint minimization? On a ship made of slippery tile? What did she want us to do, levitate? One woman tried to hand the printout back saying, "Oh sweetie, I think you're confused." But Karen stepped back like the woman had tried to hand her a diseased ferret. Rules must be respected, she snapped. Meanwhile, the entire deck was now locked onto this unfolding disaster. Phones were coming out. People were recording. Even the bartender behind the pool bar leaned forward like he was watching a live episode of HOA, Open Water Edition. Karen didn't care. She strutted from chair to chair, placing rule sheets onto people's laps whether they asked for them or not. She scolded a guy for having his flip-flops misaligned. She told a sunburned dad that his kid was using an unapproved flotation device. She even glared at the ocean at one point like she disapproved of the waves. I thought maybe she'd eventually tire herself out, realize no one was taking her seriously, and go back to sipping a margarita like a normal human. But no. She escalated. She pulled out a second clipboard as if one wasn't enough HOA weaponry for a single human being. And with that clipboard she began writing names. Passengers stared at each other, wide-eyed. One guy whispered, "Bruh, is she taking attendance?" Another said, "Is this a school field trip?" A third muttered, "If she finds me, I'm jumping overboard." I watched her stalk the deck, scanning for violations, and that's when my stomach dropped. Not because she wrote my name. Not because she banned my towel. Not because she declared the pool non-compliant. But because she wasn't joking. She wasn't confused. She wasn't playing cruise HOA. She was dead serious. And that's when I realized, she wasn't just playing cruise HOA. She was dead serious. Karen gathers passengers like she's running a full-blown sales seminar, not a relaxing pool deck on a floating hotel in the middle of the ocean. One moment she's pacing with her clipboard, the next she's clapping her hands like, "All right everyone, gather around, we need to address some serious compliance issues. Ma'am, the only serious issue is that you're wearing a long-sleeve pink suit on a Caribbean cruise and haven't passed out yet." People look up from their lounge chairs, confused but curious, like maybe she's about to announce a raffle or the start of bingo. No. This was the beginning of the HOA apocalypse at sea. She positions herself in the center of the deck like a motivational speaker who accidentally wandered onto the wrong ship. She even adopts the stance, feet apart, shoulders back, chin up, as if commanding the battlefield. "Before we continue enjoying this cruise," she says in a voice meant for stadiums, "we must establish community expectations." Smash that like button if this already feels unhinged because I almost spit out my drink. Community expectations? Lady, the only expectation on a cruise is to not get sunburned and to always say yes to dessert. She raises her laminated guide, her sacred HOA scripture, and begins listing rules that absolutely no one asked for. "No loud talking," she shouts, glaring at a group of college kids who weren't even being loud. They look at her like, is she serious? She is. Very. "No wet footprints," she continues, "on a pool deck." A pool deck. What did she expect? Dry footprints? Hovercraft sandals? Magical evaporating water? Even the pool attendants stopped rearranging towels to stare at her. No unauthorized towel colors. Everyone collectively glances at their towels like they just discovered they're part of a gang. A woman with a bright orange towel slowly folds it over her chair like she's hiding contraband. No buffet plates with unbalanced portions. At this point, a dad holding a plate stacked like a Jenga tower of shrimp and mac and cheese instinctively covers it with his arm like she's about to confiscate it. Balanced portions? Girl, this isn't a nutrition class, it's vacation. And absolutely no kids running. The parents on deck look exhausted instantly. Their kids look ready to commit crimes out of spite. One little boy hears her, locks eyes, and immediately sprints across the deck in defiance like he's starting a revolution. Karen nods proudly, believing these rules are saving humanity. Passengers look like they're witnessing a live mental breakdown. Then she begins inspecting pool chairs for improper alignment. Improper alignment. She kneels down, places her clipboard on the ground like she's mapping coordinates, and pulls out a tiny tape measure. She measures the distance between chairs like each one must meet FAA safety regulations. "These need to be evenly spaced," she mutters loudly enough for everyone within 30 yards to hear. She slides one chair a single inch to the left and announces, "There. Much better." People start recording her. Some pretend to stretch just so their phones look natural. One guy whispers, "Bro, we paid extra for the entertainment package, but this is the real show." Karen doesn't notice. She's in the zone, adjusting chairs, straightening umbrellas, lecturing strangers about visual harmony. She even taps a sunbathing man on the foot and says, "Sir, your leg is extending into the walkway. That violates shared space courtesy." He doesn't move. She takes out her pen like she's writing him up. Passengers begin to realize Karen is not only serious, she's escalating. A woman gently approaches and says, "Sweetheart, maybe relax a bit? You're on vacation." Karen snaps her head toward her like a startled owl and replies, "Rules don't take vacations." And honestly, that sentence alone should have gotten her banned immediately. She starts pacing again, this time scolding people individually. Too much splashing. Too much talking. Too much sunblock smell. Someone laughs at her tone and she whips around like, "Is something funny?" The guy almost chokes trying to hold it in. The tension is comedy mixed with horror, a perfect HOA cocktail. She keeps inspecting chairs, adjusting towels, and handing out more of her printed rule packets like she's distributing IRS forms. The cruise staff watches from the side with the same expression parents have when they realize their toddler just colored on the walls, exhausted and already done with the day. Finally, a small crowd gathers because nothing gathers a crowd like someone acting outrageously out of pocket. People whisper. Some cheer ironically when she fixes a chair. Others purposely move their chairs crooked to antagonize her. She rushes over to realign them, muttering about disregard for order. A teenager purposely leaves a dripping wet footprint trail around Karen's feet like a crime scene outline. Karen shrieks and steps back like water is poison. Meanwhile, I'm sitting on my chair thinking, this cannot get worse. Oh, but it can. Because Karen suddenly decides her rules shouldn't just apply to passengers. They should apply to the crew too. She marches toward a staff member arranging towels, points at him like she's casting a spell and says, "Your towel folding does not meet community standards." His expression is pure, "I don't get paid enough for this." And that's when the circus really started. Karen starts taping bright yellow stickers onto people's deck chairs like she's tagging abandoned vehicles on a city street. At first, I thought she was leaving passive-aggressive notes, classic HOA behavior, but then I realized these things were huge. Neon. Bull. The kind of bright yellow that screams you're in trouble even if you don't know why. She slapped one onto a chair where a teenager had stepped away for literally 60 seconds to grab sunscreen. She slapped another onto a lounger where some poor guy was mid-nap. The sticker actually stuck to his leg when he shifted. He woke up confused like, "Did I just get towed in my sleep?" Passengers started whispering, pointing, snickering. Meanwhile, Karen strutted around with the confidence of someone who once won a neighborhood bake-off and let the power go straight to her head. Then she approached a family, parents, 2 kids, everyone just trying to enjoy their vacation without being ambushed by HOA nonsense. Karen steps right between them and the ocean like she's blocking their access to sunlight itself. She plastered a sticker onto one of their towels and announced, "You've exceeded the towel limit for this zone." The dad blinked at her. "Ma'am, this is a cruise ship, not your HO." Karen tightened her grip on her clipboard. "The rules apply wherever I am. Wherever she is. Not the ship. Not the law. Not reality. Wherever she is." That's honestly the most Karen sentence ever spoken on international waters. The mom tried to keep it classy, asking politely, "Who told you there was a towel limit?" Karen puffed up like a blowfish and said, "It's in the guidelines." She handed them her laminated packet, the one she made herself. The mom flipped through it, looked at Karen and said, "These pages aren't even numbered." Karen snatched it back like the woman had just insulted her firstborn child. Then came the pool incident. A woman stepped out of the pool, dripping water like any normal human exiting a body of water, and Karen spun around like a shark smelling blood. "Ma'am," she barked, "you are dripping in a dry zone." She held up a yellow sticker like she was about to tag the woman like wildlife. The woman stared at her, baffled. I just came out of the pool." Karen nodded like she had caught a criminal. "That's not an excuse." "Not an excuse? To be wet? After being in water? At the pool?" At this point, passengers were recording everything. Phones were up everywhere. Some people tried not to laugh but absolutely failed. The chaos was too good. It was pure cinematic quality meltdown. Even the ship's photographer stepped back with his giant camera, not wanting to miss the action. Crew members walked by exchanging that, "Oh no, not her" look, the one employees get when a customer is 5 seconds away from demanding the manager, the CEO, and probably the United Nations. One crew member whispered to another, "Is she serious?" The other sighed, "Unfortunately, yes." Karen kept taping stickers onto anything that didn't move fast enough. Towels, chairs, bags, coolers. She even tried to stick one onto a kid's floaty, but the kid splashed her and swam away laughing. Karen gasped like she'd been hit with a weapon. Passengers nearby started giving running commentary like sports announcers. And Karen goes in for another violation. Oh, denied by the splash. "Ladies and gentlemen, that yellow sticker never even had a chance." Someone else murmured, "How long before security gets here?" While casually eating nachos like this was scheduled entertainment. Karen heard the laughter and doubled down. She raised her voice, shouting things like, "You're all out of compliance. These chairs are improperly spaced. This deck is an unsafe environment. I will be issuing citations." Citations. On vacation. A guy shouted back, "Cite me for being too relaxed," and the whole deck cracked up. Karen spun toward him like she had found her new arch-nemesis. "What's your name?" she demanded. He raised his piña colada and said, "Guy who paid too much for this cruise to listen to you." Karen stomped forward, waving her clipboard like she was ready to duel. Her face turned the same color as her pink suit, bright, stressed, and way too intense for a tropical vacation. The more she escalated, the more the passengers collectively decided, "Yeah, this lady needs to be stopped." People weren't just annoyed now, they were done. Over it. Ready for the final boss fight. A crew member approached slowly, gently, like he was trying to coax a raccoon out of someone's attic. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "you can't place official notices on guests' belongings." "These are official," she snapped, holding up her sticker roll. "They're stickers," he replied. Karen gasped. "They are compliance markers." He looked like he wanted to quit his job immediately. Meanwhile, passengers kept recording. The internet was about to feast on this footage. And as wild as things already were, the moment that pushed the ship into full rebellion was still coming. Because Karen hadn't yet targeted the one group she should have never messed with. The crew. Karen storms up to guest services demanding an office and staff like she's marching into the Oval Office. I'm talking full speed walk, stiff arms, chin high, pink suit flapping dramatically behind her like a malfunctioning superhero cape. The passengers hanging out in the lobby, some waiting to book excursions, some just sipping iced drinks, slowly turn their heads as she approaches the counter with the energy of an approaching tornado. Before the poor guest services rep can even greet her with the standard, "How can I help you today?" Karen slams her clipboard onto the counter so hard the pen clipped to it bounces off and skitters across the floor. Everyone within 10 feet jumps. One guy actually flinches and drops his sunglasses. Karen leans forward with all the authority of a substitute teacher who caught kids whispering and announces, "I need access to the PA system. I'll be giving mandatory compliance announcements." The rep blinks like she just asked to borrow the ship. The PA system? Yes, Karen says, pounding the counter again for emphasis. Passengers are behaving recklessly, and this ship is operating under dangerous conditions. I need to restore order. Lady. It's a cruise ship. The only dangerous conditions are the buffet running out of bacon and the pool deck getting slippery when wet, which, by the way, is its entire personality. The crew member tries to hold in a laugh, but two passengers behind Karen fail miserably and snort out loud. Karen whips around and glares at them like she's about to revoke their neighborhood parking privileges. She spins back and says, "I will require a small office, 2 staff members, and daily access to the intercom. Also, a bulletin board, preferably in a high-traffic area, to post violations." The rep looks at her like she's speaking Martian. "Ma'am, we don't do that." Karen squares her shoulders. "Then you need to make an exception. Immediately." The rep tries again. "The PA system is for emergency use only." Karen's eyes widen like he committed blasphemy. "This is an emergency." A kid in line whispers, "Is she for real?" His mom whispers back, "Pretend you don't see her." And then, because Karen's brain runs on pure HOA adrenaline, she decides conversation isn't enough. She marches around the counter, literally coming behind the desk like she works there, and reaches for the microphone sitting next to the computer. You could feel the whole lobby freeze. Guests gasp. One woman says, "Oh no, she didn't." Another guy starts recording immediately because this is TikTok gold. The guest services rep jumps back. "Ma'am, you can't be back here." Karen ignores him and grabs the mic with both hands like she's about to announce a hostage situation. "Attention passengers," she begins, but before she can finish, the mic stays mercifully silent because the system isn't even on. Still, the visual alone is insane. She tries again, hammering the power button. The rep rushes forward to stop her. She resists, pulling it closer to her chest like a toddler gripping a toy. "I have to alert the passengers about the rules." At this point, a security guard appears, looking tired already as if he's been summoned to break up 10 of these incidents today. He approaches calmly, hands out, using the soft voice they reserve for people who've clearly lost it on vacation. "Ma'am, I need you to step away from the counter." Karen jerks the mic toward her. "You have no authority over me. I'm on the board." Passengers gasp, then immediately burst into laughter. Someone shouts, "Wrong boat, Karen." Another yells, "Which board?" "The diving board." Even the security guard bites back a smile. Karen whirls around, hair flying, eyes wild. "I am on my community HOA board, and I will not be disrespected." The security guard blinks. "Ma'am, this is the ocean." Karen doesn't care. She starts ranting about standards and order and lack of discipline, still clutching the microphone like it's Excalibur. Security gently but firmly reaches for it. Karen resists like they're ripping her soul out. A full tug-of-war ensues, over a turned-off microphone. Passengers cheer like it's a sporting event. Someone starts chanting, "Security! Security!" Another records in slow motion. A group of teens add sound effects. Finally, security wrestles the mic from Karen's hands. She gasps dramatically, clutches her chest, and stumbles backward like she's just been tasered by reality. The passengers erupt into applause. Like actual applause. People clap. People whistle. Someone throws their hands up like we're in a courtroom drama and justice has been served. Karen, humiliated and furious, points at the crowd and yells, "You are all out of compliance." But the clapping just gets louder. Even a crew member behind the desk can't help but grin. Security escorts her gently away from the counter. She tries to maintain dignity, but it's tough to look powerful when you're being walked out like a disruptive aunt at Thanksgiving. And as she disappears around the corner, I swear you could feel the entire ship exhale. Peace restored. Briefly. Mini cliffhanger, and that's when Karen decided to confront the one person she should have left alone. Karen finds the captain during his daily deck walk. You know, that calm, composed stroll ship officers do where they greet passengers, check conditions, and generally radiate "I have actual authority" energy. He's mid-conversation with an elderly couple when suddenly a pink blur darts across the deck. Karen steps directly into his path, nearly causing a collision. She plants her feet, raises her clipboard like she's holding a sacred text, and says with full dramatic flair, "We need to talk." Immediately. The captain pauses, blinking like he's trying to figure out if she's part of the entertainment. Before he can ask what's wrong, Karen jabs her clipboard toward the pool deck behind him. "You need to enforce my rules. The passengers are out of control." Out of control? People were literally sunbathing, sipping smoothies, and living their best. "I paid too much for this cruise, but whatever, lives." The captain gives her a polite professional smile. "Ma'am, this is a cruise ship. You're not in charge." This should have been the moment where any rational human being realizes they've gone too far. But Karen? No. Karen's HOA circuitry activates at full power. She straightens her spine, lifts her chin, and says with peak HOA energy, "By maritime common courtesy, I am." Maritime common courtesy. Not a thing. Not remotely. She made it up on the spot with the confidence of someone quoting scripture. The captain blinks again, slower this time, the way people blink when they're trying to comprehend someone else's delusion. "Ma'am," he repeats carefully, "there is no such policy." Karen scoffs. "Well, maybe you don't enforce it, but in my community." He cuts her off gently but firmly. "This is not your community. This is not your HOA. This is a cruise ship." Meanwhile, passengers start noticing the standoff. People lounging on chairs sit up. Others walk closer with the universal body language of, "Oh hell yeah, what's happening?" Phones start coming out. One guy even whispers, "Round 2, here we go." The energy on the deck shifts instantly from relaxation to reality TV level anticipation. Karen, sensing she has an audience, doubles down. She literally steps closer to the captain and says, "The children over there," she points dramatically at a group of kids giggling and splashing in the pool, "are too joyful. This level of noise is unacceptable. You need to shut down the pool until they calm down." The captain actually laughs. Not mockingly, but in that exhausted way people laugh when they're confronted with nonsense so wild their brain short-circuits. He recovers quickly. "Ma'am, the pool is for families. Children are allowed to play." Karen gasps like this is shocking new information. "Not like that. Not loudly." They're creating a disruptive environment for passengers who prefer a peaceful experience. A man nearby, sipping a margarita and wearing a Hawaiian shirt, calls out, "Lady, it's a pool, not a meditation retreat." The deck erupts into scattered laughter. Karen spins toward him. "You're out of compliance too," she shrieks. The captain raises a hand to regain control. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to calm down." Karen throws her arms in the air. "I will not calm down until order is restored." She starts pacing back and forth like a general rallying troops that do not exist. These passengers have been ignoring the rules since day one. Towel violations. Footprint violations. Noise violations. Splashing violations. At splashing violations, one of the kids cannonballs into the pool behind her, soaking the deck, and her. The timing is chef's kiss perfect. Water hits the back of her pink suit full force. She freezes. The crowd laughs again, louder this time. Someone yells, "Direct hit." Karen spins toward the pool, dripping, furious, and yells, "This is exactly what I'm talking about." The captain sighs, pinches the bridge of his nose, and tries once more. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to step aside so I can continue my duties." But Karen isn't done. She tries to block him again, shuffling left when he steps left, shuffling right when he steps right. It looks like a bizarre slow-motion dance. The passengers look delighted. Someone starts recording in cinematic mode. Another person whispers, "Oh, this is going viral." She slams her clipboard against her chest like a shield. "If you won't take action, I will." She starts shouting random rules into the deck area like an unhinged town crier. Quiet hours begin now. No running. No rough play. No unauthorized swimming packages. A woman next to me says, "Unauthorized what?" and absolutely loses it laughing. The captain finally steps forward. giving her that calm but dead serious look only people in uniform can deliver. "Ma'am, if you continue disrupting passengers, there will be consequences. This behavior is not acceptable." She recoils like he threatened her life. "Consequences? For me?" She points wildly at the pool. "But what about them? They're splashing. They're laughing. They're breaking the rules of the ship." The captain folds his arms. "Ma'am, these are not your rules." Her face turns 10 different shades of red. She opens her mouth to argue. But the deck suddenly goes silent. Everyone senses something big is about to happen. The captain steps closer and says low but firm, "This is your final warning." Karen looks around at the watching crowd, the cameras, the amused crew members, and she chooses violence. She screams, "I will not be silenced." And that's when security starts moving toward her. Mini cliffhanger. And the next morning, she made her biggest mistake yet. Breakfast on a cruise ship is supposed to be peaceful. Soft clinking of silverware, the smell of bacon, families half awake trying to decide between waffles or pancakes. But that morning, the entire vibe got hijacked the second Karen marched into the buffet area wearing her pink suit like it was battle armor. She had her clipboard tucked under one arm and a fresh roll of yellow violation stickers in the other like she was preparing to raid the entire dining hall. She didn't even bother getting food first. Nope. She walked right past the omelet station like a predator scanning for prey. Passengers noticed immediately. A guy in front of me whispered, "Oh God, she found the buffet." Another muttered, "This is not gonna end well." And we were all correct because Karen went straight into HOA enforcement mode at 8:07 a.m. She started inspecting people's plates, leaning over them like she was checking construction permits. Someone politely stepped aside, thinking she needed room to pass. But no. Karen angled her head, squinted at a plate of scrambled eggs and muttered, "Improper portion balance." Improper what? It's eggs. They don't come with a math test. Then she made her move. She slapped a bright yellow violation sticker directly onto a guy's omelet. Like on the actual food. The sticker partially melted into the cheese. The guy jumped back like she just attacked him. "Hey, what are you doing?" he said, wiping at the sticker. Karen responded with full Karen righteousness, "Your portion exceeds the recommended amount for a single passenger. This is a safety concern." Safety concern? Nobody has ever been injured by too much omelet. Except maybe emotionally. But here's where it gets hilarious. The guy she just violated? Not just a random passenger. Not just a dad trying to enjoy breakfast. He was a ship officer in casual clothes, off-duty but still very much someone with authority. He slowly lifted his eyes toward her, gave her a smile that said, "Ma'am, you picked the wrong omelet," and calmly asked, "Can you repeat why you put a sticker on my breakfast?" Karen took this as an invitation to escalate. "Your food is non-compliant," she declared proudly, like she'd solved a crime. "And I will not tolerate unsafe dining behavior." Unsafe dining behavior. If she had a gavel she would have used it. The officer set down his fork, cleaned the cheese off the sticker, and signaled discreetly to another staff member. 2 security personnel arrived like they'd been waiting for this moment since day one of Karen's chaos. They approached carefully. "Ma'am," one said, "we're going to need to have a conversation." Karen recoiled like they'd sprayed her with cold water. "Excuse me? I'm helping the ship maintain order." "No, ma'am," the officer replied, now fully standing, "you're disrupting passengers and interfering with operations." Karen crossed her arms. "I have every right to enforce community standards where staff refuses to." At that exact moment, a kid nearby dropped a spoon, and the entire table flinched because the tension was so thick it felt like something might explode. The officer gestured to security. "Please escort her to a private meeting room." Karen gasped dramatically, but before she could protest, they guided her gently away from the buffet area. Passengers started whispering like they were watching the finale of a reality show. They finally got her. Took long enough. "Bro," she put a sticker on his omelet. Inside the private meeting room, quiet, cool, very official, the captain was waiting. He stood behind the small conference table like a judge presiding over a case he already knew the verdict for. Karen marched in with her chin held high, acting like she'd been invited to negotiate a treaty. He didn't waste time. "Ma'am," he began with calm authority, "you are disruptive. You're harassing passengers. And you're interfering with crew operations. This stops now." Karen didn't even blink. She slapped her clipboard onto the table so loudly it echoed. "I demand a hearing with the board." The captain looked at her for 3 silent seconds before answering, "There is no board." Karen's eyes went wide in horror, as if he'd just revealed the ship didn't have oxygen. What do you mean there's no board? Every community has a board. This is not a community, the captain said slowly. This is a cruise ship. Karen clenched her jaw. Then form 1. Passengers outside swear they heard the captain exhale the deepest, longest, "I'm done" breath imaginable. This man has likely handled storms, mechanical issues, drunk passengers, maybe even pirates. But Karen? Karen was the final boss. She then launched into a full rant about rule enforcement, towel limits, noise levels, and her self-appointed duty to restore order. The captain listened with the stone-faced patience of a Buddhist monk, letting her talk herself into deeper nonsense. When she finally finished, she crossed her arms like she'd made an airtight case. He nodded slowly. Then he stepped closer. And then, "I swear," the captain delivered the sentence heard across the entire ship. The captain didn't waste any time. The very next morning, right as people were grabbing coffee, stretching, and pretending they weren't hungover, the ship's speakers crackled to life. Everyone paused mid-bite, mid-sip, mid-conversation because cruise announcements usually sound serious. Weather updates, activity times, emergency drills. But instead, in a calm, professional voice, the captain delivered the one message Karen absolutely did not want to hear. To all passengers, he said, please note that any compliance notices being distributed by a guest are not official. Please ignore them. There was a beat of silence as the words sank in. Then the deck exploded in cheers. Actual cheers. People clapped like the ship had announced free margaritas for all. Someone shouted, "Thank you, Captain." Another yelled, "Down with the HO." A guy by the pool lifted his drink into the air and toasted the ocean. Karen, who had slithered back onto the upper deck thinking she was safe, froze like the world had just ended. Her face contorted into that signature Karen disbelief, the blend of fury, shock, and "how dare someone tell me no?" She whipped her head around looking for someone to yell at, but everyone was too busy celebrating her downfall. Then she saw it, the microphone set up near the stage. She stomped toward it like a villain in a Saturday morning cartoon. You could almost hear the Darth Vader theme. But before she could even reach for the mic, security moved in like a well-rehearsed dance routine. One stepped in front, another to the side, forming a human nope barrier. Karen shoved her clipboard upward. "I need to respond. You can't silence me." The security guard closest to her said gently, "Ma'am, passengers are not permitted to make ship announcements." She tried to push past him anyway. "Move. I have the right to clarify my rules." He didn't budge. Not even an inch. Karen bounced off him like a malfunctioning Roomba. Passengers laughed, not mean, just relieved. Finally, the Chaos Queen was being handled. The captain wasn't done though. He walked over calmly, hands behind his back, radiating that "I've dealt with pirates but this woman might be worse" attitude. He motioned for security to escort Karen into a side area near the stairwell, somewhere semi-private but still very visible. People followed at a distance, phones up, narrating the walk like it was a parade. Karen kept talking the entire way. "This is a violation of my authority. I'll have your job for this. I am doing your work for you. You're all liable for this harassment." Security didn't react. They've heard it all before, just probably never from someone enforcing imaginary maritime HOAs. Once inside the small alcove, the captain delivered the verdict. His voice was calm, steady, and ruthlessly polite. "Ma'am," he said, "after reviewing your behavior, I am officially restricting you from all public decks for the remainder of the cruise." Karen shrieked. Not yelled, shrieked. She stumbled backward as if he had physically struck her with a rolled-up copy of her own rulebook. "You can't do that. I have rights as a board member." The captain blinked. "Ma'am, there is no board." Karen jabbed her finger toward him like she was dueling. "Then form 1. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Security already knew the drill. Two guards stepped slightly closer, not touching her yet, just letting her know movement was no longer optional. Karen lost it completely. She screamed loud enough for the whole deck to hear. She waved her clipboard like a dying Jedi swinging a broken lightsaber. She threatened lawsuits. Several lawsuits. Probably against random people standing nearby. She tried to quote fake maritime laws she definitely invented on the spot. She even yelled, "I will not be oppressed," which made a group of teens burst into laughter so hard one of them dropped his pineapple smoothie. As security gently guided her down the hallway toward the interior of the ship, passengers erupted into applause. Big applause. The kind of applause you hear at graduation ceremonies or when your team wins a championship game. Someone even started chanting, "Captain, Captain." and the chant spread across the deck until the captain had to hold up a hand like, "Please contain your joy." Karen kept shouting things like, "You'll regret this," and "This ship is out of order," but no one cared. People filmed. People cheered. People waved goodbye like she was boarding a life raft to exile. One woman leaned toward her husband and whispered, "Best cruise ever." Another man mused, "This is better than the comedy show." A kid yelled, "Bye Karen," and everyone laughed like they were in on the universe's joke. Karen disappeared around the corner with security at her sides, still clutching her clipboard like it was a security blanket. Her reign of HOA terror had finally been cut short by the one force more powerful than Karen energy, a captain with zero patience for nonsense. And as wild as that moment was, the funniest part? The part that had the entire ship talking long after we docked? That came at the very end of the cruise. Because the funniest part was how the cruise ended. On the last morning of the cruise, that bittersweet day when everyone's cramming their swimsuits into overstuffed suitcases and pretending they're not sad to go back to real life, the ship delivered a surprise no one saw coming. A crew member walked down the hallway dropping off a glossy printed newsletter onto each cabin door. The cover read, "Farewell Gazette, your week at sea." Cute, right? A little souvenir. A recap. Maybe a list of activities we didn't get to. That's what I expected when I picked mine up. I thought it'd say something like, "Thanks for cruising with us. Remember to tag us in your photos." Something wholesome. But oh no. Inside, on the second page, right under Best Sunset Photos Submitted by Guests, was a bold section title that made me spit out my coffee. Notable Incidents of the Week. I froze. Everyone on our hallway froze. You could hear doors opening, pages flipping, tiny gasps, and then laughter erupting up and down the corridor like popcorn popping. People stepped into the hall holding their newsletters, faces lit with chaotic joy. Because there, in black and white print, immortalized forever in cruise ship history, was a full write-up of Karen's antics. Not exaggerated. Not softened. Not anonymized. No. The cruise staff went full send. The list included unauthorized distribution of counterfeit compliance notices, attempted takeover of the public address system, unauthorized formation of a cruise compliance committee, improper towel policing, repeated interference with pool activity enjoyment. Passengers were howling. One guy said, "This is better than the onboard comedy show." A woman leaned on the wall wheezing, "I can't believe they actually printed this." Someone down the hall shouted, "They documented everything." But the best part? On the bottom corner of the page there was a cartoon illustration. You could tell some crew member had way too much fun drawing it. It showed Karen's infamous pink suit, her oversized sunglasses, and her clipboard, except the clipboard was drawn like a full-on villain. Giant angry eyebrows. Sharp teeth. Little speech bubble that said, "Violation." People were crying laughing. Someone yelled, "They turned her into a meme." Another guest said, "I'm framing this when I get home." As word spread, the entire ship practically turned into a festival of laughter. Folks carried the Gazette around showing it to strangers. Even crew members tried not to smile too hard when passengers pointed at the cartoon. It felt like the universe had collectively decided to roast Karen one final time before tossing her back into society. And where was Karen during all this? Oh, she was stomping down the hallway clutching her own copy of the Gazette like it had personally insulted her ancestors. Her face was a shade of red no human skin should naturally reach. She kept approaching groups of people, pointing at the newsletter and ranting, "This is defamatory. This is harassment. This is illegal." Nobody engaged. Nobody argued. Nobody even made eye contact. They just quietly walked away snickering. The ship had socially muted Karen. You could almost hear the mute button click every time she opened her mouth. She tried one last power move in the atrium, marching up to guest services demanding they recall all printings immediately. The staff member didn't even look up from the computer. "Ma'am, it's already been distributed to 4,000 guests." Karen sputtered, well, print a correction." The staff member smiled politely. "Have a wonderful final day aboard." That was the moment Karen realized the battle was over. She had lost. Spectacularly. When the ship finally docked, passengers lined up to disembark. Spirits were high. People chatted about excursions, souvenirs, upcoming flights. And every now and then, a burst of laughter echoed as someone reread the Gazette's Notable Incidents section for the 10th time. I grabbed my bag, headed down the gangway, and when I reached the end, the captain himself was there, greeting departing guests. He shook my hand with a firm, friendly nod and said, We appreciate passengers who help keep the peace. Translation: thanks for not being Karen. Meanwhile, and this truly was the cherry on top, Karen wasn't even allowed to disembark with the rest of us. Security guided her down a separate pathway, away from the crowds, away from cameras, away from the Gazette waving passengers who would have turned her departure into a parade of mockery. She clutched her clipboard to her chest, muttering under her breath, "I was trying to help the community." Yeah, sure, Karen. Whatever helps you sleep at night. As I stepped out into the sunlight and breathed real land air again, I couldn't help thinking about everything that had happened. The pool violations, the kids' joyfulness, the PA system takeover attempt, the omelet sticker incident, the captain's final ruling, the Gazette immortalizing her downfall forever. And that's when I realized, Karen should never be allowed near international waters again.